Go off the I'd like to call the work session to order for April 15th, 2024, tax day. Isn't that lovely? Will the city clerk please read a roll call?
Let the record reflect that all members are present except for Councilmember Campbell.
Okay, and we'll wait to hear whether she comes. I have no idea at this point. We have one item on the agenda tonight, which is the continuation of the April 8th work session. I'd like to remind council staff will be pausing intermediately to answer any questions. Before you start, I just want to make one mention that we have a new rock star among us that went to Coopstock, okay? The manager, Wynette Reed, and I saw the film, and she did an excellent job promoting the city of Goodyear. In fact, I hear that Goodyear was sent out multiple times during the event. So congratulations, and I just wanted to say a little tip of the hat to Wynette. She did an excellent job there. Thank you. All right, with that, go ahead, Ryan.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Ryan Biddle, and I'm the Finance Manager of Budget and Research here at the City of Goodyear. As you all know, this is our second work session as we continue discussions on our fiscal year 2025 City Manager's recommended budget. Our last work session was a week ago on April 8th, where we met from 2 to 6 p.m. Today's work session is scheduled from 3 to 6 p.m. Based on several topics discussed in last week's work session, Council has been provided with additional documentation to close the loop on various outstanding questions and requests. Our plan for today is to first work through the remainder of our presentation, and then at the end, set aside time for additional follow-up in case there's questions or comments on that supplemental material that was provided. Just like last time, we have the entire leadership team in attendance to help us with questions that you may have. To continue where we left off from our presentation last week, page 188, if you have your budget book in front of you, and it's slide 57, we've made it the majority of the way through our supplementals. Public Works was next on the list. So for Public Works, we're recommending 2 FTEs, the first of which is an admin assistant. And this position will support the 4 major operational divisions within Public Works, including facilities, fleet, street maintenance, and solid waste. We're also recommending a fleet mechanic 3 position. So we added 33 vehicles last year and are adding several more this year. This mechanic will help with the over 500 vehicles fleet is responsible for maintaining. We currently have 6 mechanics, but are still having to outsource some of our repair and maintenance requests. So based on workload, that's why we're recommending an additional FTE. There is also a fleet capital asset management software request. This is an add-on to our existing fleet management software. It'll help manage the replacement cycles of our fleet, assist with cost-benefit analysis in situations where there's decisions like repair versus replace, and automate several additional processes that our fleet team currently performs manually. We're also requesting a supervisory vehicle. The original intent was that this person be 100% of their time be focused right here at GSQ. However, as things evolve, they're spending more and more of their time all around the city, so this vehicle will allow that person to get around where they need to get to. And then I skipped over, sorry, there's a facilities condition assessment. So that facilities condition assessment, the last one we did of this magnitude was back in 2019. We like to do these every 5 to 7 years. This would be the 5th year of that, and that helps us put together and validate our facilities asset management plan. And last but not least, there are dollars recommended to help with Public Works portion of unimproved property maintenance. Are there any questions?
Go ahead, Councilmember Stipp.
The only question that, and you kind of just touched on it, is the facilities condition assessment. We did it in 19, it was reported to us in 2020 or 2021. I don't think we've completed or even taken action on the previous study that now we're going to start another one. It just, and for $350,000, that just seems like a big dollar amount to move forward. Perhaps that's something that we should maybe finish the first one, or at least get us through part of the way before we get another report that says, yep, this place is still in bad shape. Yep, this place still needs to be replaced. Yep, this place still. I mean, it just seems like we're going through the process of this study because it's the time to do it rather than there's a necessity. So I'd like to get some information on the timing of that.
I will have Public Works come help me talk through that one.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for that comment, Council Member Step. The last facility condition assessment, the comprehensive assessment was done in 2019. And you're right, after that we came up and made a presentation on the facilities master plan in which we discussed the general status of the facilities as they were. And from that, some action plans came out, which was basically the plan for the municipal operations complex that was identified as one of the major needs in that. And then we also addressed some of the immediate concerns that came on the Calle del Pueblo facility so that those team members have appropriate working conditions because that facility is really old. The intention of this particular request is if we can assess all the facilities citywide and we have a large number, then it gives us a snapshot in time. And like Ryan mentioned, this can be done 5 to 7 years. So if this year is not a good time, we could come back and request this next year too.
I think I'm certainly not my job to dictate how this gets done, but it just seems to be an incredible amount of money to study what we already have done. We haven't added new facilities. We haven't done anything else. And the Calle del Pueblo, I can never say that right. The old Public Works place, let me just say that. The old Public Works facility is still horrid. We still have people there. The solution, I believe, is temporary. So what's the permanent solution? We shouldn't have to spend $350,000 to tell us we need a permanent fix for that. And until we determine what that is, I'd rather see $350,000 go toward the design of a new facility for that which we know is needed, as opposed to looking at, yeah, we have a brand new city hall, we have something else. So I just question kind of the mentality of us doing this. And yeah, it may not be now, and maybe it's 3 years down the road from now, but kind of like maybe it's better to see what have we done, what do we have left to do before we go off and study again. And I realize this is one-time dollars, so these are the easiest quote-unquote dollars to spend. But I think when we're looking at the kind of fiscal condition that we're talking about with everything being virtually flatlined, we should be looking and really looking at a project $350,000, and is this the right way to do it? So maybe it's more rhetorical. I know you're getting ready to retort. So.
No, I thank you, and I put it down as noted, so thank you.
Any other questions? Go on.
So I'm going to skip 2 slides ahead. It'll continue with you guys following along in your books. The order that we show, we want to get all of the general fund related requests out of the way before we hop into the enterprise fund. So the last piece of the general fund related requests is for our stormwater division within water services. So there are 2 requests, and those are for stormwater basin and channel maintenance, as well as stormwater's portion of unimproved property maintenance. So that, as we talked about last week, that unimproved property maintenance is split between a couple different departments, so this is their portion of those dollars.
Go ahead.
I might not have anything else highlighted in my book, so this may be good for everybody. Again, this is going to be that one-time versus ongoing discussion. So we have stormwater basins and channel maintenance and unimproved property. We're talking about 453,000 acres. 450 acres of property. That's not a small amount of land that appears to require annual maintenance, especially for stormwater. But we're funding this, and it appears we did it last year, and we're doing it again this year with one-time monies. And I know we had talked about creating a I don't want to say a stormwater division, but we had talked about making this a permanent, ongoing component. And again, I realize the financial situation, et cetera, but again, we're really looking at $1.5 million of ongoing expenses that we're funding with one-time dollars. So what's the strategy here?
So probably to address that comment and as a general statement for any budget items that may have been requested as ongoing or appear to be an ongoing need, I want to make it clear, we're not focused on figuring out whether there's a need. There's obviously a need. So it's more so we're trying to make sure we understand internally the extent of that need, meaning how much of that necessarily should be ongoing versus one time. So the big items that we discussed last week had related to types of landscape maintenance. So this unimproved property, stormwater basin, which we just talked about, right-of-way. Some of these have ongoing dollars towards them, so maybe this is more of like a peak shaving conversation. The unimproved property maintenance is a newer thing, although was requested last year. This is the second year, so working to get that into the budget and really understanding. We've done a lot of work internally on who's responsible for what, how are we going to track that process, because property or portions of property is constantly being added to the city's budget and being removed as development occurs and we take over additional property. So we are well aware of that, and we made the comment last week about the engineering enhanced maintenance for transportation infrastructure, that we would track that and be able to report back on it, while we're continuing to have those discussions through this year with the intent of figuring out exactly what is the appropriate amount to go into ongoing versus one time, how that should be handled until we basically get comfortable as a group with what the right amount is. This allows us to move forward, and then we can track and report out on that as well, and close that loop basically at a later point in time.
Question I have, this is a general fund, and we have a lot of one-time money that at some point next budget year, we're going to have to figure out how to slide it over to ongoing. Any thoughts in creating part of the enterprise fund to pick up this as utilities, so that it becomes part of the rate structure as opposed to worrying about the general fund?
We haven't had that conversation yet. We'd be more than happy to explore that. I guess where our heads are at, or at least my head, I won't speak for everybody, but based on how our conservative budgeting philosophy is set out in this particular budget and every single year, our budget is structured to produce an abundance of one-time money every single year. Construction sales tax, for example. Our construction sales tax for next fiscal year is always budgeted at 80% of what we expect to bring in this year. So we could have a 10% drop in construction sales tax next year and still have enough money to fund everything that should be in ongoing or needs to get into ongoing. So I want to make it clear that the ability to fund out of one time is not an issue at all. We will
No, but
always
it's
have
not-
money to do that. But
but
to
it-
get it into ongoing and where that goes into ongoing, that discussion is something that we will be working through this year. And we are open to suggestions, but we do have some ideas that we'll work through.
But you got to keep in mind, our fiscal policy is one-time money for one-time expenditures and ongoing for ongoing. So I understand the abundance of the construction, but if our state legislators ever, pull the rug out from underneath us, then we'd be back to square one again. I'm just thinking in the broader sense, and I don't know if it belongs in the enterprise fund, as far as stormwater. To me, it seems almost like a natural fit with water, wastewater, sewer, et cetera, is maybe some of that can slide over onto the enterprise side and be part of the rate structure as opposed to taking general fund dollars, whether it's one time or ongoing, away from some of the other programs that we're going to need funded. Just a thought for you guys to think through, kind of going forward with that.
Thank you.
Did you have
Thank you.
something on it?
No, just thank you. So,
Yes, go ahead.
I don't disagree, but I think we have to be careful that we don't put it into the water rate structure, because water is only paid for south of I-10 and the storm water is everywhere in the city. So I don't know how we would
You could create a separate
create
structure.
a separate.
You
Yeah,
could.
and what we'll also look at, though, is the specific properties. So we've identified what the properties are, and then we've divided those out to each of the departments. So we can pinpoint those that are in our water service area, and if it's appropriate, to charge them to the water or wastewater funds.
Okay.
You got to remember the argument we had on benefit when we did the water treatment plant, in which we used general fund bond service for that. So, I mean, it's not unheard of, depending on if you can tie in who benefits from that storm water. So, okay, just a thought.
No, I agree.
Okay. Keep going.
All right, so now we're going to switch gears from general fund money and general fund subsidized money to enterprise funds. So the first on our list is solid waste. I'll make a general comment that all of the recommendations out of both solid waste and water and wastewater, which you're getting ready to see, have been included in our updated rate models that we track and are continuing to update. So for the solid waste fund, we are requesting 2 equipment operators, a rear loader, and a grapple tractor. Basically, this is another bulk trash crew, is what this comes down to. So the 2 FTEs to operate it, and then the 2 vehicles to help collect everything. That'll be our 4th bulk trash crew. And that's necessitated based on just the pure volume of accounts that we have.
Go ahead.
I just want to make a comment, and we don't talk about solid waste very often. We see those as homeowners pretty regularly. Even though they're riding in quote-unquote air-conditioned cabs, et cetera, those are some very hardworking individuals that are out there day in and day out. I see the work that they do. Probably are the least appreciated, although I think there's probably it's probably a top 10 list of least appreciated city employees. But I think of the programs that we hear about, the bulk trash is got to be, I would imagine, one of our top 3 popular programs in the city. And it goes to what the mayor constantly talks about, which is how this city looks very well, and I think it's because of that. You can tell the communities that don't offer it nearly as often as we do. Over the last 2 of these work sessions, as I've been saying, all I've been doing is bitching, but these guys and the solid waste folks really do a bang-up job.
Yeah, I can add any more to that to say our neighborhood is out there every day, a lot of them using that, so they really appreciate this service. So, and again, I couldn't add any more than what you just said there, Councilmember Stipp. Go ahead.
All right, so our second enterprise fund, water services. So we're recommending 2.5 FTEs. The first is a utilities locator position, and this is the person who goes out and basically puts the colored stakes in the ground so development doesn't hit the various utilities. And this ensures we have bandwidth to keep up with requests and stay in compliance with our response times. There's a treatment supervisor position that we're recommending, and this position is responsible for the ongoing evaluation for water treatment facilities, ensuring that they operate efficiently. They'll also help maintain our safety program and be actively involved with the water superintendent when it comes to modifications, any expansions to facilities, and strategic planning efforts. The utilities maintenance supervisor, this position is split half between water and wastewater, so you'll hear about it again in the next slide. But this particular position, it's a span of control request. The current supervisor has 10 direct reports, up from the starting point of about 4 back in 2016. And think of maintenance staff, they're kind of like the mechanics that help maintain the equipment, machinery, and the nuts and bolts of the facilities. The other requests or the other recommendations, brine disposal, CIP operating costs. So as we get into the CIP, we'll talk about our brine disposal project. So this is the ongoing cost to help maintain the pipeline on APS's side of things as it relates to transporting our brine to Palo Verde nuclear plant. And then a well impact analysis. So as part of the ongoing evolution of utilizing our surface water treatment plant, we've begun storing surface water. However, in order to be able to retrieve and use what we've stored, state statute requires that we have a permit that can only be obtained by undergoing this type of study. And those are all the recommendations we have for water.
Any questions? Go on.
On the wastewater side of things, we're recommending 1.5 FTEs. So similar to the water treatment supervisor, the wastewater treatment supervisor will be responsible for very similar duties, overseeing the facility. This particular one will supervise the Corgate and Rainbow Valley water reclamation facilities. And then this is the other half of the utility maintenance supervisor that I just talked about.
Questions? Go on.
All right, that concludes the supplemental section of our presentation.
Okay, why don't you hold it right there to see if there's any follow-up on the supplementals before we get into capital improvement, to pick up on any questions you all may have to follow up on before we get into the capital improvement. Anything? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Okay.
Well, when you have a week to think about it, you start to think about other questions to ask. So I'd like to hop over to the finance section. Thank you. So there are two supplementals, number 1 and number 2, the internal audit and the billing specialist. So with an internal audit, I think that's a pretty standard operating process in a lot of large cities, and I'm sure there's a lot of standard formats. So I'm now starting to wonder, are we going to do consultants for every item on our strategic list, or are there things like this that we can implement on our own? Do we have I understand you have an auditing background, so are there opportunities for us to initiate some of these on our own?
So in the case of the internal audit, really the consulting that we're going to do there, some of that we could do ourselves as far as looking at comparable cities and how they've developed. One of the reasons why we want to have a consultant is because we want the consultant to actually help build what that program's going to look like. So it's not for them to do specific studies or internal audits, but more to help us build that program, to give us some direction, where does this internal auditor, where should that program lie? Should it be in the finance department? I think when we look at other cities, you don't normally see that, but because the finance department would be heavily involved in a lot of the internal auditing, we saw that it would make sense at least to begin this in the finance department, but really this is going to get stood up here. We'll be bringing it back before council with our recommendations for the internal audit program going forward, and then we can make decisions on how we're actually going to set that program up. But the consultant's really here to give us some recommendations and also help set that program up.
Is that something you would anticipate being actively involved with, so that at the end you don't say, well, those were their recommendations, or we're going to do something? I mean, that you're actually going to be involved in building this?
Correct, absolutely. I think the internal audit program, while likely it needs to be outside of the finance department has to be very involved in what's going on here. One of the key things for internal audit is having good procedures in place, and we want this consultant to come in and give us a heads up on where are the areas that we might need to shore up our procedures. And that's what we're going to take advantage of these consulting funds to help us do, so that when we do bring this program and get it off the ground, we will have a good start of where we need to go.
Okay. Well, yes, I'm sure the procedures lie in your department that would be audited. It just made me think of, especially as Bill was questioning, another consultant for $350. I mean, before you know it, you've got a lot of consultant money that we're doing. All right, the next thing is the billing specialist. So we're moving from a business registration to a business license. And will that be an automated process, or is this a manual process?
So today with the business registration, it's fairly automated in the way we have it set up, but we don't have a lot of, essentially we're sending you a bill and you're paying it or you're not paying it. With a license program, there's quite a bit more administrative need there. So we will automate the billing as much as we can. However, we know that there's going to be some implementation that's going to take more time as we set up the program and we start to line out those processes we need to put in place. I would expect the first 18 months won't be as automated as we'd like, but we will take advantage of all of the software that we have in place to help make that as automated as we can.
Okay. I know the reason why we've implemented the business license and some of the maybe the social problems we had. This position won't address at all. So this is just administrative, and you and the city manager think that this is necessary for this program to be successful.
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Maybe this is more of a comment because about traffic, so I'm going to jump to traffic now. Because I know that we're allocating money for traffic services. This is something that we continue to talk about. It continues to be a conundrum in our community. On Friday, I reached out to Wynette because I was in an intersection that was so blocked that the left turn lane could not turn onto the street. And my concern was, is there any other alert system besides a council member contacting the city manager to say, you have streets that are jammed and cannot move at McDowell and Pebble Creek Parkway? It's very bad.
Can you hear me? Mayor, Council. Thank you for the question. Yes, that was, we do have folks monitoring the TMC. We've been essentially trying some different timing to evaluate what's best for those intersections. And so we've updated, I think through the city manager's memo, and that was something that we were trying to get some data to see if it would be more efficient or not. And so we did change that one back.
Yeah, that was a big, that doesn't work moment.
Very big, and I mean, potentially very dangerous. Again, people had green lights and couldn't enter the intersection because it was backed up that much. And so I know that that's just one spot. I'm sure that it happens in other places. And this is getting to be a problem. And maybe I'm just jumping ahead, but thinking about, I know where you have a CIP for the Pebble Creek Estrella Parkway, we're at I-10. What fiscal year will that be going?
The interchange improvements?
Yes.
That is currently, it was currently out to bid. We're working through that right now. Hope to have construction starting in the near future, and then it would be construction completed in fiscal year 25.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I don't think we can push back at all. So thank you very much.
Right.
So anybody else? Bill?
I wanted to piggyback on two of those things. Don't go anywhere, Steve. You were very kind. This latest experiment is terrible would be an improvement. It is horrid out there in traffic. Things were flowing pretty well under what you had done previous, and this latest switch, and I mentioned this to Wynette during our one-on-one, but this is horrible. This past weekend it's worse on the weekends. We're back to that. It's horrible on the weekends. It's bad during the day. The way that you guys had it seemed to be functioning pretty well in the latest version until you made the switch recently. So I cannot support and reiterate enough how bad it has been the last 10 days driving through the city.
I appreciate the feedback, and
yeah.
we were down in the TMC looking at today over lunch, so really appreciate that. We will make some adjustments now.
I think we may be relying too heavily on data and not enough on practical application. And I know that that's counterintuitive to, I'm going to say an engineer or engineering, because I don't mean to point to you directly, but sometimes the simplest solution is really the best. So please, you guys are doing, I know you're working hard at it. So I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to get off that drum. On the internal audit, to go back to the Vice Mayor's question on that, and I think I heard it at the very end of your comments, Jared, but you had told us last week, and you mentioned today, this is for a consultant to come in, design the program, et cetera, which I can get my head around. But when you look at the description of the supplemental, it is an engagement, and potential areas to review include project management manual, inventory management, contract compliance, additionally use the services to establish parameters for it. So this sounds like an engagement, and then if they have time, they'll do this. So which order is it in? Is it, because I'm reading the description right from the book, so I'm just trying to.
No, the intent of that of that request is to have a program designed and stood up for internal audit, not to actually do internal audit engagements.
But you are going to check to make sure that we're baselined
Correct.
in some areas before we actually bring an internal auditor on.
Correct. And what we may do as part of this is it's likely we will have a test audit that's done using this program. So as we stand that up, we may have an audit example that we use.
So I'm concerned, I think, from this perspective, that internal audit, as I would be familiar with it, are they're process audits. They're not always financial. So it's, and you're the last guy to lecture to on this because that's what you did before you came here. So I'm fully aware of that. But that's my concern is, are we too focused on the financial end of this and not looking at the process improvement piece and what can we, making sure that this, which is why this doesn't live in finance. I mean, one of the reasons why, but if we're looking at processes and management controls and things like that across the entire organization, this is not a financial audit that we are all familiar with. So I'm just making sure that we are all saying the same thing. And I'm not confident that we are, but are we?
Yeah, we are saying the same thing. So the other piece that we want them to look at is to do a risk assessment of our processes and give us some direction on where should you be auditing, where's the biggest risks that you have, so that we have a roadmap, so to speak, going forward. And I would love for it to be in departments outside of finance to start with, but I know from a risk perspective, it's likely going to be, it'll be pretty heavily within finance, but certainly the idea behind this program is that it's not only on financial programs or processes, but really citywide processes and based on the risk that it has to the city.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with where you're going there, except, as an internal auditor type of staff, first of all, you're going to be looking at, you're talking about risk assessment, you're going to look at process, make sure you have the right internal controls in place to make sure your risk is mitigated, whether it's purchasing, whether it's billing, whether it's collecting funds, or any of that stuff. So just make sure you got the right program in place that can catch that before the actual external auditors show up to find any type of issues on there. So I can see kind of developing it in a way in which you make sure you have the right process that mitigates the risk and each one of those processes that you have. So I think we're all talking about the same thing. It's just a matter of developing the program itself. Go ahead, Sherry.
Yes, I just want to comment on what the Vice Mayor said about the intersection. I do have a question. When we get those cameras up in these intersections, will that, don't be laughing. When we get those cameras up there, will that be a tool that you'll be able to change them? And then my other question is, when we're making these changes, can we get officers out there? Because I didn't realize that it had been changed. I'd been doing other things this last week, and I drive that area a lot, and it was horrible, and you would see people backed up into the intersection, blocking the intersection, and there was no PD there to clear it or to ticket people, because people clearly were frustrated, so they would just go into, and then they'd sit in the intersection, and they'd just kind of hang out there. So you couldn't go, otherwise you're blocking more of the intersection. So I guess my comment would be, is the camera something that's going to help alleviate these as we get this up as one tool? And can we get PD out there as we make these changes to make sure that it doesn't backlog like this?
Good question. And last time we met, we heard a lot about what is the plan for the cameras, what's the plan for Real-Time Crime Center. We don't know how this is moving forward. So on May 13th, we'll be coming back to council with the plan for those things and answer questions so that we know, and we're all on the same page, that if council says, yeah, that sounds like a good plan, we can spend the money. If they say, no, I'm not liking that, then we're not going to spend the money until we have a good plan that council accepts. So it is between the tentative and the final budget, but we'll be here on May 13th to focus on those two pieces. That we heard a lot last time is like, what's the plan? So, good question.
Yeah, I think, even when I'm going downtown, unfortunately, some of it is just, I guess, driver's courtesy. It used to be, and it doesn't happen as often anymore, is when you approach a light and it's yellow, you just don't go through the thing knowing that you're going to be hanging out there at the intersection. But apparently that courtesy has kind of disappeared among a lot of drivers these days, so they think, I'm just going to beat it and just kind of hang out there, and next thing you know, you got a mess. So, even if it's necessary to get cops out there to ticket them for hanging into an intersection where they're not supposed to be, I would be all in favor of that. So, thank you. Anything else? Go ahead, Wally.
Thank you. This is the same conversation we have had every year about the traffic getting worse and worse. And I've always said, I just wonder how many people in traffic and engineering actually drive in the weekends in our city. They don't maybe live here, so they don't know really how bad it is. But we've had 15 years to figure out how to make the traffic move around the ballpark, and we still haven't figured it out. During spring training, it's still a mess. I found my first pothole yesterday, and it's in the left turn lane when you turn left off of Indian School onto Bullard, and it's right at the beginning of the turn lane signal. And it might have been repaired, and if it's been repaired, it's a terrible repair because your car falls in it. And I haven't seen a pothole in a long time in Goodyear. But what I'm worried about is that we keep studying, and we study, and we do this, and we do that, and we're not making anything any better. We're still sitting with lights that have the burlap over them. And you're always saying, well, we've got to, there's the warranty, and we've got to do this, and we've got to do a test. And why? The streets are busy. We're building all of these apartments on Cambridge and on Virginia. People are cutting through from Pebble Creek Parkway to Bullard to get to wherever they're going to go. And we still don't have right and left turn lanes. They're there, but they're covered up. So how long are we going to cover them up? They've been covered up 25 years. I would think the warranty would be gone by now.
Okay.
And so I just want to know that sometimes our staff drives through our city and see what we put up with every day. We can hardly get into church at Desert Springs for the 8 o'clock, the 9:30, or the 11 service. We're backed in. It takes 4 to 5 lights to turn left or right off of Indian School to go into the church parking lot. And this isn't the first time I brought that up. We just don't seem to be able to get it right. And it would be nice if we could make it a little easier on us. And like Laura said, we have no one to call but Winnette. I get tired of complaining to her because she thinks I complain all the time, and I do.
You don't.
But I have nobody
don't.
else to call because I don't go
You don't.
I don't go over her head to another department. It's her job. We hired her to fix it. Can you fix
You're
it,
good.
please?
Yes.
Thank you.
And you don't complain.
I do
too
too,
much.
but I complain nicely because it's so frustrating, and
Yes.
especially around the Pebble Creek area, because we're going in and out, and then we've got folks that ride their bicycles, and it's so dangerous over there, and they're still going 60, 70 miles an hour on Bullard right through the pedestrian walkway at the canal where my neighbor was killed. I did see motors there once this year, and I was thrilled to death, and they did stop someone that passed me going 65 miles an hour. And I was thrilled, but now I don't see anybody there, and they don't pay attention to that 35-mile-an-hour zone. We've got to do something, but I don't know what. I almost feel like we ought to put strips down that rumble, to slow you down, but I don't think that'd do any good. Because then the motorcycles would complain, wouldn't they, Mayor?
Yes.
I knew it. Okay, but anyway, that's it. But I really would hope that we do a better job.
Anything else? Yes, go ahead.
You want to answer something on that topic? Changing the topic.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's fine.
From streets. Yeah, that's all good too. I agree with all that. So, and then looking at totally different topic. So we're talking about general fund. Can you remind me what the percentage is that goes to arts? Again, is it 2% of our general fund?
A lot.
I-
It's a construction
I don't know
sales
off the
tax.
top of my head. I apologize.
It's a small amount of the
CIP.
capital,
Is
Yeah.
it CIP or general fund?
CIP.
Okay.
CIP.
The next
yes.
topic then, sorry. I'll bring it up in the next
I'm
topic.
going to call Guylaina.
I have her on speed dial.
You have Guylaina on speed dial?
I do.
I got her.
Oh, you
Right
bet.
there.
Hmm?
I just
There
called
she
her with my
Oh, there
mind-
she
my
is.
mind. With my
Okay,
mind.
honey.
Lower everyone. So the ordinance reads that you can do up to 1% for your capital improvement projects. So that could be building, that could be wastewater, that could be streets. It's for any capital improvement project.
Okay, and what's the ongoing for your guys' department?
Ongoing for public art,
Yeah, for your.
Or
You're a
for-
subsection of,
What's your budget?
Park and Rec.
if the budget
Yeah.
for the Arts and Culture Division,
Yeah.
we are, I don't have my papers up here, Nathan's pulling those up.
He's going to pull it up.
you're
Doug.
part of Parks.
Parks and
We
Rec.
are parts, yeah, we're a division of the Parks and Rec Department.
Ryan's pulling it up for you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Phone a friend.
So for the capital improvement projects, that's the 1%.
It
I
can
know it's
be
a
up to
designated amount,
1%.
Up to 1%.
Up to one,
Then the
mhm.
budget is separate. That's how you do all the events. and
That's a
everything, so-
separate budget, yes.
Yeah, and I brought this to the city manager before. This is just something, I think you guys do a great job, and I would like to do more of that. I don't know if we have the money to do that, so I'd like to increase, not necessarily the artwork everywhere is great, but I'd like to do
Events.
more cultural tourism and arts tourism type things. I think you guys are underutilized for that. I think you guys could do more of bringing people from out for arts. Arts could be a lot of different things, but, so I'd like to look into doing that. I don't know what it would cost, what the budget would be for that. I guess I'm leading towards, I'd love to have a tourism group here eventually, but I think the arts, we already have arts departments. I think that would be a good thing. So you guys do great on events, but, and artwork itself, but I'd like to leverage you guys more, whatever that looked like, dollar-wise. I don't know what that is, you didn't bring that to me, what the cost would be for that, but I'd like to do that, because I'd like to get more arts tourism.
So Ryan's gonna pull up the numbers for our ongoing budget. Now, that's gonna include your arts and culture, your special events, and everything that happens within our division. For the public art, it is, thank you.
The 1%, I thought it was 2, but maybe I would.
So our operations are 1.9 million for the arts and culture division.
Thank you.
Can I also add on your request, we do have a project in the strategic plan.
I was gonna
just-
ask, is it already part of the strategic plan?
Yes, yes, for the tourism and expanding, events and things like that. So
Yeah.
we will be evaluating that and bringing back options and suggestions. So that is in the strategic plan.
Yeah, because arts are, I mean, you can directly tie that to economic development, so.
We
with
love
those-
it.
With those kind of things, so I just was trying to, I don't know if there's money this year, but if there is, strategic plan says that should be a thing. I don't know if we need to set aside money or what that looks like, but I'd like to increase your guys' budget at some point. I don't know what that dollar amount is and what impact what that impact would be for you, making a big difference, so, okay, thank you. And then, yeah, fix the streets.
Anything else paused at this time for the stuff that was supplementals before we get into CIP? Anything? Bueller? Okay, we're all good. All right, CIP.
All right, so for the remainder of the presentation, council, if you're following along, if you want to go to page 26 of your budget books, 26, 27, 28, and 29 should follow right along with our presentation here to wrap things up. At any point, if you want to talk about a particular project, just please feel free to stop me. There aren't any built-in necessarily question slides or anything like that, so as a topic comes up that interests you, if you have questions, please just raise your hand or let me know. So as we go through our CIP, first let's talk about what's currently budgeted in fiscal year '24. One of the important things to note is that we actually had a change in how we define our capital improvement projects. So previously, our definition was basically anything over $100,000 got put into our CIP. Unfortunately, $100,000 doesn't go as far as it used to. So we had a supplemental a year or two ago that was approved to basically perform a analysis of our capital improvement program internally, our processes and how we are doing things, and assigned us a maturity level and had some recommendations. So one of those recommendations was to increase the threshold from $100,000 to $500,000. So that's what we've done. When we did that, that reduced the number of projects in our 5-year CIP from around 270 plus to around 80 projects. Still a lot of projects, but it's an easier number to wrap your head around. And what that did from a dollar standpoint, it reduced the dollars in our CIP from around $360 million to the $306 million that you see on the slide in front of you. Out of that $306 million, 4 projects make up the majority, actually over half of our CIP, in the current year's budget. The first of those is Camelback. This project's been on our radar for quite some time and is meant to expand the number of lanes, add drainage, turn lanes, traffic signals, raise medians, and undergo a handful of additional improvements on Camelback Road from 152nd Avenue west to the 303 Loop. When this project was originally presented several years ago, this was going to be a joint effort with multiple jurisdictions participating in the improvements. However, as most of us are likely aware, this is now a City of Goodyear-only project, and we're proceeding as such. The budget of $48.9 million, which is on the slide in front of you, is in the process of being reduced based on revised cost estimates and an updated scope that includes a cost of a 4-lane configuration versus a 6-lane configuration as was originally proposed. In addition to being able to control our own destiny, the scope was supported by the findings in our recent Transportation Master Plan update. The revised total project budget is expected to be in the $31 million range. It's 100% budgeted all in the current fiscal year, which means when we get to tentative time, when we carry over projects, all of our CIP, there will be a large carryover for Camelback, and we'll carry over the dollars that are necessary. This project's being funded by a combination of GO bonds and general fund money, with completion scheduled in fiscal year '26.
Good question, Ed. Hold on.
Camelback Road, just want to clarify on that. I know we're doing it on our own now. Is there any opportunity for them to, the city, Glendale, and the county to ever give us more? Are we shifting it away from their border, or are we still the same path? Is there anything, not an easement, but something where they gotta give us money back if we do something for them?
I think somebody's gonna come up here and talk to you about that.
I mean, because it benefits them as well. So I just didn't know if we do something like our land, like our developers, we build the road, and then if they build on it, then they have to give us some money back for that. Are we doing something similar for?
Mayor, council member?
Yeah.
So the current plan, once we adjusted the scope to kind of take control of our own destiny with this project, that was after discussions, my understanding was many discussions with the county and with Glendale, and we were the only agency that was willing to move forward at that time. There are other developers on the north side in Glendale that have contributed to their half-street frontage, so they're currently building it. So when Camelback's all said and done, those portions will already be completed. But as far as our capital project, we changed the scope to where we could essentially control our own destiny. So there's 4 lanes within the area that Goodyear already owns, if that makes sense.
Okay, so we don't cross into Glendale?
There will be portions of Camelback that are partially in Glendale on the north side. And when it's fully built out in the future, I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, 2045, 2050, there'll be a portion of it that's in Glendale on the north side of the street.
Oh, so our portion doesn't fully go in there, but it's scoped to where it could go to 6 lanes, or go into their area eventually.
Correct. We're going to complete 4 lanes for 2 in each direction and a center turning lane and median. And in the future, when it's fully built out, there will be some that are north in Glendale.
I know
so
it's
it could be 6 lanes total, if that makes sense.
I know it's only a 10-foot strip, but I'm just curious what it looks like. I just want to make sure if we're benefiting them, that they would help us with the cost eventually. But I know it sounds like it's probably won't be happening anytime soon. So.
Correct. Currently, the plan, the benefit that they're providing is they're requiring their development community to build their half-street frontage.
Okay. I know this is a priority road. At least I think it is still.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
I don't know if it needs to be, but I don't know. So, okay. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Stipp?
So we're only gonna, what is going to happen from 152nd East?
152nd East. The medians, we're going to put in the medians.
Just, let's say all of it, because I realize the road is already improved in multiple lanes from 152nd East to the city border, but there's that section within Litchfield Park that we were supposed to be working on, and so what's happening with that aspect of
Litchfield Park.
Yeah, the Litchfield Park component, the part of it, are we doing nothing to that 1 lane in each direction there? Did this whole regional thing completely fall apart?
So currently, our project scope does not include Litchfield Park. We can certainly reach out to them and figure out their timeline and provide that as a follow-up.
They're not gonna do it.
So the,
They won't now.
They won't do anything.
so the regional fix is non-existent.
Litchfield Park was never a part of this. They refused to expand. Now, I don't know if they have recently talked about, and I can talk to Matthew, if they're even considering going to median two, but they were never a part of this, at all in the conversations.
Like, I think very early on, the way it was supposed to be from Litchfield Road all the way to the 303. It was supposed to be Litchfield, us, Glendale, and the county. Everybody was supposed to be working together, get this whole thing.
Yeah, we wanted them a part of it.
So the whole thing fell apart, so we're going to take care of
We
our
wanted
aspect.
Litchfield Park a part of it, and they refused to come to the table. And then Glendale didn't want to bring money forward, so we went back to the 2 median 2.
Okay.
And the county also explained that they don't have money to put towards it. So we're working with the developers to get it built out at least to the 2 median 2. There's a section on the north side that will never have anything on it, but that nursery, I think it is, it's a small portion
Oh,
right next to the 303 that really has no potential. Nobody cares about it, so we did own that portion of it, but we did move it into where it's in our right-of-way. We updated, I think, the council the last time on this, but nobody wanted to bring money to it.
And I get that. So the median, however, east of 152nd to the end of the city boundary, we're not including that as part of this project?
We're going to include as much as we can. I don't have all the specifics on the top of my head, but yes, the only portion of the project that stretches east of there would be installing the median.
Right, and I think when that road opens up from 2 lanes and it's 3 in that section, then it'll come back to 2, so I'm not sure what we're gonna do. I mean, we have to fix that, so we don't create a hazard from 3 lanes in. I mean, it kind of already is. As you're heading down there, it goes from 3 lanes to 2 lanes to 1 lane. I mean, it's already kind of a mess. I think we've got to fix that as part of this, so if this isn't enough, I mean, I was always under the impression that we were gonna do at least the city's portion, but it doesn't sound like it.
Well, this is coming in right now under budget, so I'll work with the staff to provide more information for you.
Get the scope, okay.
Yeah.
Because I think we've got to, just from a safety perspective and what we're doing with the roadway configuration up there, and I know I promised Guyleen my 2025 money, but if I can get a sign installed that said, "Now entering Litchfield Park," as you're leaving Goodyear, I would love to do that with my discretionary money. But maybe that's our public art. Maybe that's what we do on this.
As long as you dress it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, we'll make it a public art project. But I think we owe it, if that's going to be what's in the city and people are going to go, "Oh my God, I'm in Goodyear, that's awesome." And then they're going to know when they leave, we got to make it as safe as possible. That's my, I mean, all jokes aside, I think we've really got to make sure we're doing that.
Go ahead.
I like the sign idea. My concern is maybe if you could reach out to Litchfield Park and kind of give them one last shot as we're building that to get some sort of, I'm sure it would save them money if we all do it at the same time.
Yeah.
I know because this is going to create a hazard in their city. They're turning by that Fry's, turning right onto Camel. I mean, it's already a mess now when you drive that way. And it's gonna back up into their intersection is what's gonna happen at some point, turning left, because it's gonna all narrow. So I don't know if maybe have changed their mind now that they've got their road done and their roundabout, but that's just gonna be a mess for them. And we're gonna be the ones gonna hear about it, because it's our road.
Not if you put the sign up.
Yeah, big sign.
I think it's going to be a hard sell only because they're doing everything they can possible with the roundabout and whatever to keep trucks off of that area.
They don't want, yeah.
They don't want them there. So I just don't see them making the 2 lane there. And I think that's, if I was guessing, I'd say that's probably the reason why. But I like Bill's idea, so at least people know They're entering another city.
Welcome to Litchfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome truckers.
Like you do, like when you go into Reno, you know, they've got those things over the roadway. Are you listening, Eileen? This is our public art. Some big thing that says,
Welcome to Litchfield, truckers welcome.
thank you, well, let's not go that far. Thank you for visiting Goodyear. Good luck in Litchfield Park. No.
I do have lunch with Matthew on Thursday, so I'll give it one more try.
Give it one more try, but I got a feeling that, good luck. Anything else? Go ahead.
Would you refresh my memory why we're even doing Camelback? It's on.
It wasn't on.
Sorry. So why are we doing Camelback at all? And we still haven't finished Saraville.
Can we wait?
I mean, you probably don't know,
Those,
or maybe
those,
you do.
well, those projects are proceeding in parallel. The original intent was from, I believe, the 2014 Transportation Master Plan, but however, we updated that last year, and it did include this as an area that is a higher priority.
Why? What's out there that we're worried about? It
It-
can't be the Microsoft Road because it's not done yet.
That's on Indian School.
Oh, Indian
Microsoft,
School,
yeah.
wrong street, sorry.
Yeah.
So what's out there on Camelback? I don't remember. I mean, they closed the golf course. There's nothing out there.
Small Valley Phase.
You got
The,
residents
Small
there.
Valley Phase.
Yeah? Yeah.
5.
You've got a
Well,
pilot
Sedaya's
truck
on
stop
down, so
now.
that doesn't count, does it?
Truck stop is not ours.
Truck
I
stop
thought
that's there
Sedaya was
now.
on Indian School.
We'll the backside, on top of it. We don't go, all. This is, the project doesn't go all the way to 303.
No, it doesn't, so,
It is.
more so than Saraville? I mean, I just think we're getting our priorities screwed up here,
Saraville's been in the plan
What's
for
Saraville?
15 years.
and it's not done. I'm just saying. And now we're gonna go spend 48 million to do this other road, and these poor people, we're just pushing them aside again. So where is Saraville in your CIP?
it's under design right now, and we're working through the acquisition, so it's currently funded.
You're working on acquisition
That's the phase.
still? Okay. All right, thank you.
Well, how about if we go to the next one? I had a question on brine, only because my understanding is once you do that, it's gonna free up our capacity at the plant. Am I accurate on that? If that's the case, when do we expect the brine disposal project to be done?
Yes, thanks, Mayor, Council. The brine project is underway. That's one that's from this fiscal year.
Okay.
It will be done in phases. Completion of both phases will be done by June of 2025,
Okay.
which was one of the supplementals you saw this evening, was to pay for the ongoing O&M once we start sending that brine. So that's how they're tied together. The capacity in the peak of the summer that will be freed up from removing that brine from the wastewater plant is roughly 1.5 million gallons a day.
That's nice, okay. Now, I thought it was pretty large, the actual free up, which is interesting because of the way we're growing. Apparently, we're catching up faster than anticipated on some for 1.5 million. That's a good piece, so I appreciate that, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Just one quick question on the Rainbow Valley Water Reclamation Facility. Do we get additional money from that? Get back. You're getting your steps in today. How's that? Do we get any contributions from the developer for that?
So this one is still working through our development agreement, but it will be shared between the
Okay.
developer of Estrella and the city.
Okay, so we're not on the hook for 54.5 million.
No, there is also a portion that's being covered by rates because it doesn't increase the capacity of the facility, but it makes sense to do that work at the same time while we have contractors on site. So
Okay.
it's kind of got three funding sources.
Hold on one second. Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I'm good with that. I was going back to the Camelback Road thing. Did we get the 8 million roughly from the state still? Or is that, I don't know if
We've got
that
it,
changed
yes.
as well with the whole agreements of everybody else, so, okay, good. That's what I was clarifying. Is that saying 48 included in that? Or is that
Okay.
40 with the 8?
So the 8 million's on the revenue side, so that's the cost. That would offset the cost of the 48. So look at it as 40.
Okay,
This is 4?
all right, thank you.
Okay, okay. Do we have any more on these four? Okay, go ahead to the next slide. I think we've got some more discussions coming up.
Yeah, a couple other projects of note. Again, we're staying in the current fiscal year. These projects are already budgeted. Fire Station 188 is substantially complete at this point. Estrella Bridge, everybody should be familiar with that. Design budgeted in '24, completion estimated at fiscal year '28 at this point. We've talked a little bit about the Estrella Pebble Creek I-10 interchange. Estimated completion fiscal year '25, '26 timeframe. I know we're going to have to, we've got plans to work around to try to minimize the impacts on traffic as much as possible, because that's obviously a very busy intersection. Our Goodyear Water Reclamation Facility expansion, that's probably one worth talking about. So this one is kind of a combination of 3 separate projects, but the total project budget is around $120 million is what it's going to come in at. That is already factored into our updated rate model, so that's already been captured in. But there's a one-time contribution also in that one, offsetting some of those costs. That'll be budgeted through a combination of one-time money, as well as impact fees for expansion. And then the remaining dollars are budgeted in fiscal year '27. That's the primary piece of the construction, around $80 million. So it's a big dollar project, and that's going to increase our capacity up to about 9.5 million gallons per day.
Anybody have any questions on this slide? Go ahead, and then.
First of all, thank you for putting the Estrella Bridge on there. I'm very happy to see that in design and should get done in the next few years, because again, that's another one that's very, very unsafe to drive down, because people fly down there about, 70 miles an hour. Do we know how many lanes yet? Because I know we had a work session, we were discussing about lanes, we were discussing about bike lanes, how it was going to go for safety. Are we still in the process, or do we know that yet? Sorry, you're getting your steps in too.
Councilmember, yes, after discussions last year in a work session, we discussed moving forward with 3 lanes, so full build out, 3 lanes in each direction.
All the way to MC 85?
It's MC 85 to Vineyard, yes.
Okay, and there'll be a light at Vineyard?
Yes, yep.
Oh, okay, that's good. How about the bike issue with the bikers? Because we have a lot of bikes there. We were discussing different ways to make it safe for bikers on that bridge.
We're still going through, we're in 30% design right now, so it's something we're currently taking into consideration.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering what the update was on that, so thank you. That's, I think, the only one I have on this section, so thank you.
Brandon?
She stole my question, thank you. But yeah, we can make the big bike riders safer too, that'd be good. And Vineyard, the intersection and the gateway to the Estrella Regional Park there as well, safe, that'd be good too. So, thank you.
Any others on this slide?
I have it.
Go ahead.
What is the budget for Fire Station 188? It said substantially complete. What does that mean? What are they doing?
Go ahead, Steve. I'll look up the final budget, but you can talk about operations.
As far as substantially complete, that means that the fire station has a C of O, the firefighters have moved in. I believe all the offsites are done. There might have been some landscaping left, but
How
it may
much
be
was
wrapped
it?
up at this point.
I'll be able to tell you in just a second.
Did we approve it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's already built and open.
When did they do it?
This was just completed
Just
a few months
completed.
ago? Yeah.
Okay. Now, my next question is, on the Estrella Bridge, is there do you think 3 lanes both ways is enough for that much traffic going up the hill? I mean, are we looking ahead 25 years? Do we really need more than 3 lanes? And is there going to be, do we have the land to do it if we want to expand at a later date? Because if Estrella builds out, you're going to need more than 3 lanes, Sherry.
Well, then they gotta redo that, the whole.
Absolutely, the whole thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
2 each way.
I know.
And then there's also Cotton, isn't it, separate?
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole design.
Yeah.
Probably so. You're probably right.
Councilmember, we did take that in consideration. Originally, it was 2 lanes in each direction. And with the transportation master plan, as it was being updated, we got some early information. We came back and discussed that. And essentially, we determined that we would probably have to turn around and expand another 2 lanes within 5 years. So that's why we came and asked for permission to move forward with full build out, which will take us beyond the horizon year. So to your point, 30, 40 years.
Okay.
And quick follow-up, the budget for Fire Station 188 was about 19.5 million.
19.5 million, and that's in Mobile? I mean, that's the new one, it's Citrus and whatever that street is that I can't find
Yeah.
half the time because they're working on it.
That's the new one we just
Oh, that's
opened.
gorgeous, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was finished, I was hoping it was finished, but I didn't know that it was totally finished now. So we're done with that one? Okay, good, so we can check that one off, we're still working on the others that we're bringing up to date.
Fire Station 189 will be the next one coming online, and that will be, I think, estimated completion is until fiscal year '28 for that one.
Okay, perfect, and it's already kind of in the budget like?
It is in the 5-year
It's on the
CIP,
horizon,
yes.
so this is not a surprise for us.
Correct.
That's perfect. Okay, because we don't need to be worrying about it, we need to just be doing it. So thank you.
Councilmember Gillis?
Fire Station 188 just had their opening like a month ago.
I was there, I
Their grant.
forgot the number.
Yeah.
I don't know the numbers,
Yeah.
Vicki, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
don't pay
no, it's
attention to the
okay,
numbers.
it's just, that's been done, it's done. We're on to 189 now, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody else on this particular slide? All right, next one.
So those were all projects. Councilmember Stipp, do you have a question?
Want to talk about the other ones before we get into funding assumptions?
Yeah. How many, yeah, go ahead.
All right. So one of the questions that I asked before we got into this is, we get these 3 pages, and then there's a whole bunch of pages in the book that list hundreds of CIP projects, starting on page 110, and then it goes for 20 or 30 pages. So what I asked for was, what are the changes that that have occurred? And on Friday, the 5th of April, the manager's office sent out 5-year CIP projects changes. So Saraville Avenue, Wally was talking about that earlier. The west half, Yuma Road to Elwood, has again moved from 2026 to 2027. This has been moving from one fiscal year to another almost as long as I've been on council. This project cannot be delayed, I think, any longer. And I know, Steve, you talked about right-of-way acquisitions and whatnot, but the same thing, Yuma Road, Canyon Trails to Saraville, that is now moving from 2024 to 2026. There's been zero discussion, zero explanation. Some of these projects have been moving and moving and moving and moving, and we don't know anything about it. This is my last time sitting here, but, so I say to everybody else who's gonna be here, you can't let this go, we cannot let this go on. If we set a date, the date's gotta be, unless there's been something earth-shattering that changes it. And some of these projects have been on the books for 10-plus years. And I remember standing in front of the people at Canyon Trails in 2012, telling them, this is in the CIP, we're gonna have it done. And this project still lingers. Now, I realize Romans has been an issue down at one end, but that hasn't been the case on Saraville, and that hasn't been the case in other times. And this has just been continually moving. But if you look at some of the projects that are, some of them have just moved a year, some of them are moving 2. And I realize it may be about timing, and it may be about capacity, and it may be about money, and some of that makes sense. This should not have come because I said, hey, tell me about the changes.
That's right.
That should be in this book, in print, so that we can, we can see it. The substation for the police substation at 188 is moving back 3 years, from 2026 to 2029. What's the deal? We were told 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we need to go to this district system, and we need to get everything set up, and we need to have these substations. We said, yes, please go forth, and this thing now is being pushed back 3 more years. I don't know why. So let's talk about that one, and I'll go on to my next one.
Yes. Initially, when we built or projected to build 188, the substation was still under consideration. We thought that more discussion needed to take place. And if the new chief comes on and determines that districts are what we should continue with, we will know more then.
Okay, that, there's some semblance of understanding there.
But, Councilmember
Yeah.
Stipp, remember the conversations we had saying we wanted to put these police substations in these fire stations, especially out in the west? It was discussed, and we said that's what we want to do.
Okay?
So somebody's got to remember some of these conversations we're having, because I remember it.
Well, and I think to the manager's point, the new police chief may go, hey, look, districts is a bad idea here, and this is why, and we need to reconfigure.
That's a lot of money, yeah.
Well, unless he comes from here, he isn't going to know.
What?
I mean, unless he's from Goodyear, he isn't going to understand our growth at all. So, I don't know.
I would argue that somebody from this valley would probably understand that. That's just
I
my,
just hate keep putting it off.
I do too, but fortunately, it doesn't affect how we deploy our police officers, I would say. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
This doesn't change how we've deployed them, it doesn't change how they're patrolling, it doesn't, so, I mean, I can go to sleep at night at least knowing that.
It's just a place for them to go.
And write reports.
To
and
do
be
their-
seen. Yeah.
Do their kickoff and all the rest of that, okay. The Fire Resource Management Facility is moving up 5 years. And it's got a $55 million price tag?
About half that.
I can't.
The fire resource facility, we
I
had.
can't, that's the problem. I can't tell you what page I'm on.
When we
Because they're
put,
all over.
when we put together our 5-year CIP, we only put projects in the 5 years that we have the funding available for. And that was something that we didn't have the funding available for, that will now be funded with GO bonds from the new election. So
Oh, it's the
previously
GO
that was,
bond thing,
that
that's
was
why- that's
outside
why
of the
that is.
5-year, now it's inside the 5-year.
Okay, thank you. I knew I saw it somewhere. Yeah, that's the GEO bond thing. And yeah, 1.7, 1.8 in 25, and then 22 million in 26, okay. And then, okay, my chief, don't sit down.
Come on back, chief. Almost got it.
Because I think the real one that we really need to focus on, rather than some of the rhetoricals, is Fire Station 189. We have moved up Fire Station 189 from 2026, I'm sorry, from 2028 to 2026. And we're not funding it with GEO bond, so that part I get. The issue with this is that also moves up the ongoing expenditures for 15 personnel by at least 2 years. And we all saw the chart when this thing started last week. These lines match up. And that 15 people is a lot of people. It's a lot of cops, it's a lot of support staff, that's a lot of whatever that we're advancing. And I would probably argue for no reason. We waited 188 waited an awfully long time before we decided to build it, and we were covering it with 184. We don't have more people moving out there. We just have more industry, and I realize there's more people during the day, but to advance this general fund budget by 15 people, 2 full years, I don't know how we all feel about that, but
Where's it going to be located? Don't give me a number. Where's the
Citrus
street?
and,
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Paul Luzzi, Fire Chief. That is at Citrus and Indian School. So we have land that's been dedicated from the Sadea community.
There's nothing out there.
There's,
what I'm saying.
Except Sadeo.
there's a large community.
Just Sadeo.
Go, oh, she wants to piggyback, but go ahead.
good, I'm done ranting on that.
I do have a question for that. What are well, I guess we had the study, right?
Mhm.
And how did that one come in at the study? What was that said for that one?
Yeah, they were expecting that to, or projecting that to go operational in fiscal year 27, 28 timeframe.
So we're around where the study
Yes.
says it should go
Yep.
to. Would
And it hallmarked that location as a good spot for that station.
And
to operate.
I guess, why did it hallmark that location? I know there's a community there, right?
Yeah, so they look at a lot of different factors. They look at roadway, they look at growth, they use the mag projections, the economy. Obviously, the west side of our city is one of the faster growing sides of our city. So there's a lot of different components that they place into their data collection and then are able to produce a time frame.
And are we going to be doing the same, what?
Closer to the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we going to be doing the same, basically footprint that we've done before for the other stations to save money? The same design?
Yes, we're going to use the same design. We are looking right now and working with engineering and the city manager's office in legal to understand the actual plot of land itself and how it sits and how we would actually place the station eventually on that footprint. So it may end up being a little bit small just because that frontage is a little bit smaller. So, but we're just still in the very, very early phases of that.
And what are the response times for that community?
Yeah, so right now, this is not an area that we're covering well at all. Currently, Buckeye Valley, or now they've just switched over to Arizona Fire and Medical Authority. They're actually doing about, in the last calendar year 23, 81% of our calls. On average, over the last 3 years, they're covering about 72% of our calls. Now, they are almost right across the street at Perryville and Indian School, up just a little north on that street on Perryville. But they are covering a large portion of our calls there. And so I've been having staff look at this area for about 3 years now. And we are concerned that, number one, the call volume's growing. So it's growing by about 6.5% to 7% per year. And if you pull out the Buckeye Valley or the AFMA response times, just response time for Goodyear units is over 10 minutes, about 10 minutes and 30 seconds. The closest stations right now are 188, which is 5 miles away, and 185, which is also 5 miles away. And they have an average response time of about 9.5 minutes. So,
Gotcha. I guess my concern is, obviously, we have to staff it, but if we're going to pay for these studies, if we're going to pay for the studies, we should listen to the studies. So it's kind of like you pay for them, and it's the same issue that we're having with some other cities, that we're having to cover some of their land, and so it's kind of, we can't really throw this off on other people. I know you disagree with me, I can see you shaking. But I can see that kind of when we've had that conversation that, well, we have our people covering other cities. It's kind of we kind of got to at least cover our own. It's kind of like we expanded there, so we need to cover it. So thank you, Paul. I think that's where my head is for this. It's kind of like Mobile. We bought it. We have to take care of it. And I think that might be a conversation that we're going to have, knowing that either sooner, later, or knowing that those lines flatline. That might be a conversation that we have to have, knowing what the legislature did, how we can remedy that, because we can't say no services just because the legislature took our money. We have to say, citizens, we're here to get you those services, and police and fire are kind of the big ones, and water. So we do kind of need to make sure that we have those.
Who else? Yep.
Do we know what the growth is in Sadea? I know it's a big community, but what's the growth there?
Katie's going to look that up.
It's not built out yet.
It's not built out, so it's not really huge.
I don't have that
There's
off the
quite a
top.
bit.
Today is
No,
right
it
now.
is. There's a lot of people here.
There's quite a bit in that area right now. I've seen it.
I thought the north corner, I thought was it.
Well, and Able Ranch and other things are coming out around there too.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
There'll be
so
more.
I'm with Sherry. I mean, we need to have something out there to make sure they can address it. Paul, what is a good time for these calls?
realize it
What is
was
the
built out.
most opportune time? In other words, 10 minutes is a long time to get to a call.
yeah,
correct?
I mean, our average response time in the city is 5 minutes and 59 seconds.
That's
So
what it should be.
it's
So
double.
6
We're
minutes.
too far out to get to that area. I agree with Sherry 100%.
Any other comments?
do we know what the population is?
Pay me now or pay me later.
Katie's looking it up.
Okay.
I don't have it at the top of my head.
Okay. I hope that councils going forward are more astute to making sure that anytime we do a develop agreement with anybody that wants to put a development at the northwest furthest part of this city, they have to put in a fire station. And they have to man it at least a year. We have to do something, because we can't keep providing all of that if they're going to, you know, we're trying to pay for stuff that was done long before any of us were ever on council. Because if they would have come to us today, we would have never approved them putting a house up there, any kind of a development, because they're too far away from everything. So what's the police response? 10 minutes? The next thing they're gonna want is a police station
Do you
up there.
have that? Can we get
He
that?
said 6 minutes.
6 minutes?
Chief Miller will get that for us.
Okay.
Just a couple comments. If that project is moved up, when would the hiring of the individuals, which fiscal year would that be in? Next fiscal year, the fiscal year after that?
So what we're currently asking for is design to move up to fiscal year '26, and then we anticipate construction would start in fiscal year '27.
Okay.
It really depends on the academy dates. Right now, they're currently running a kind of a spring, a fall, and a winter. You know, really depending on when that happens, we could possibly either get a fall or a early winter academy. So, you know, potentially, is that so fiscal year is July 26. So either between July 26 and January of 27, start to bring staff on. Because the construction time frame is about 8 to 10 months.
So about 2 fiscal years from now, roughly.
Yeah.
We got to
we're
figure
thinking.
out how to fix that hole, okay. The other thing, when you were talking about the police substations, one of the things I like what police is doing now is not necessarily sitting in a substation with reports, but pulling over to the side with the technology you have now and having that police car being visible, whether it's sitting in a Target parking lot or it's sitting somewhere. So as people are driving through there, they could be working on reports, but they see a police officer there, and they have a tendency to slow down or be careful. So sometimes I think it's better just be planted somewhere outside doing the reports than to be sitting inside doing the reports. That's just my own 2 cents worth, because I know it's a deterrent to have those things just sitting out there where people can see them when they're driving. And I know that's what you have been doing a lot of, is doing your reports in the car because of technology and filling out some of those now, and then people can see that officer sitting there, which I think is a deterrent. So I just want to add that as opposed to having people in substations being out there in the public working on their stuff. Any comments, Chief?
Katie, before he answers, do you have the SEDEA?
Do you have the number first, Kate?
I don't have the exact number. It's not easy to grab quickly, but it looks like it's around 1,000 dwelling units.
Okay.
Some are still under construction, but that's about where we are.
It's not built out yet?
No,
Almost.
it's almost okay.
I thought it was close.
Almost.
What are your thoughts on that, Chief?
Mayor and Council, good afternoon. So a substation is going to be just a launching point for our officers when they get briefed, they get information for the day, they go out and patrol, and you are correct, they will do reports in their cars visible to the public, and that's the goal. The idea of coming back, that's where they start their shift and that's where they end. Unless something extraordinary happens, they should be out in the field.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. Anything? Go ahead.
When is the 303 supposed to go down to extend to MC85 or to even to get to Yuma? It looks like we're moving ahead faster with by 3 years to expand Cotton Lane to Canyon Trails.
Steve, I can't find, there he is.
Is it driven
I
by
was looking
that?
back.
What page are you on?
That, the last year versus,
I know we provided updates and manager's memo on the timing of 303 extension, but I don't have it on my top of my head.
Mayor, council member.
yeah, I was just curious on that.
The latest information we have is possibly ADOT will start construction summer of '25 and be completed sometime during '27.
Okay, I'm just curious why we moved ours, why we moved it up 3 years. Is that because of that?
Which project, I
The
apologize?
Yuma Road, Cotton Lane, the Canyon Trails? But then we only do it to there, but then we pushed out.
That was also another
Was it a
project
bond
that we moved the timing up related to the geo bonding authority. So
Okay.
previously, it's a geo bond eligible project. We didn't have the funding. It was sitting outside the 5-year last year. It got moved inside with that additional funding capacity.
And then looks like, I see FY 2026 is for Yuma Road, Canyon Trails to Saraville. So is that lined up, so it'll happen the same time now? Looks like it's 26 and 26.
The completion date of Yuma Road is 26, and the start date of Yuma Road Cotton to Cane Trails is in fiscal year 26. So they should kind of piggyback, dovetail right after each other, I believe.
We should get a complete road from Canyon Trail, from 303 to Saraville on
That-
Yuma in 2026.
Sequentially, I'm agreeing with Ryan in that the eastern half mile between Saraville and Canyon Trails is going to be the first segment completed, and then we'll start the second segment all the way to Cotton from there.
Okay, but then the 303 will be done around 27.
Approximately. That's the best information we have.
Okay, and will that move with the 303, or we continue forward if the 303 does or doesn't?
We're going to continue to move forward without 303. Certainly there'll be coordination with ADOT along the way.
Yeah, I mean, and I know Romans is right there too, so I don't want to, I'd rather not move them unless it's for a reason. I'd rather, I want to move them for a reason. I don't want them to move them and 303 is not done yet, so. But, okay, and then, yeah, I think I had that. I think that's good, so, thank you.
You good? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Well, along that line of conversation, there is a longtime business there, Romans, that was mentioned, so what's the plan for Romans?
The best way I can answer that is certainly there is a partner in the development community that I believe we've worked with and have an existing development agreement with. If there are fallback options, though, as far as within the project scope that we could utilize as well for a full solution of the roadway, if that makes sense.
To be more specific.
Not exactly.
Yeah, to be more specific.
Does not make sense.
We will need to work through that because the developer has been not accessible on that. And Romans is also waiting to find out what those next steps are. We want to work with them and the developer, get those two together and move this project forward. We think it's critical that we do move the project forward. That is something we are still trying to work out. So recognizing that there are many pieces to this, but thank you.
Thank you. My question is, are we working with that developer? Because I know we've talked about it, but is it in process? Because she's been waiting forever
I know.
to get him to work. We've been talking to her about this. We keep saying we're working, but are we working?
We are.
Actively.
ACDEV is on it. It is a difficult, I want to be careful.
I know. She
Relationship
said that.
there. She has been very frustrated over the
And she should
communication that she is getting, but we are actively trying to bring the sides together so we can move this project forward. Because that's a great piece of land, actually, that whole area. I think
It
it's
is. It
great
is.
and a lot of potential there, so.
So when did we start actively working?
We
towards
worked with Wendy
Okay.
on that, and we had the communication with her. So when was it you talked to Myra?
The
or when it-
ballpark, the
Yeah,
ballpark,
a while
yeah.
back.
So, but we're working, we've gotten a hold of the developer since then?
I don't know that we've gotten a hold of the developer.
That's my question.
Have we been able to get a hold of him? Yes or no?
So we
Not
haven't gotten a hold of
responding.
him. Okay, so, but we're gonna figure out a way to get him to respond.
Working on it.
So I'm writing down this date so that we know we've talked about this. So
Yep.
when she asks again, then we can say, when's it gonna, something gonna happen finally?
We can only reach out and do our best. If they don't respond, not much I can do to
can't
get them
force
to
him.
respond. No, I can't force him.
So she just has to sit there and wait then? There's nothing she can do?
We will give her our
2026, we're gonna-
efforts, best
Mhm.
efforts.
Or in 2026, we're gonna build the land, put the road through there.
No.
I'm not listening to him, okay. All right, so best efforts. I'll make
Best
sure.
efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry, then Wally.
That was going to be my question. If they do not come to the table, what is our plan B? What is our contingency plan since that business has been there so long? Or have we not got that far yet?
Not that far yet. We really think it's the developer's responsibility actually to build that road and to help move her. I mean, it is his or her responsibility. So trying to bring all the loose ends together. Obviously, we want to see Romans successful. We want to see them continue. But moving Romans at this point in time and paying for that is not in my plan. So yet to be determined, but trying to force the hand.
And is this what's delayed that portion of the road, this
Mhm.
hiccup? This is the main delay, just so that people know when they're driving there that this is dealing with this other developer, is the hiccup here.
It's that piece of property there where that Roman sits that has delayed it. Now, we've had a development agreement, and I think it's since expired because they are close to it.
Should be expiring, I think, next
May,
month.
yeah, in May. So they're on the hook if they do anything to develop that side of the road. But regardless of the development agreement, because in the development agreement, there were, they would get compensation, some, sales tax, I think it was, paid back or something like that. Without the development agreement, they're on the hook for everything. And we could do a cost recovery on that, but that doesn't move Romans.
Yeah. Got it.
Wally?
Well, this is the second developer that has dealt with that property. This is not new for Romans. This has been going on for at least 10 years, I would think. And the first developer got everybody all excited because he was going to do this Wild West show and all this wonderful stuff. And I understand, I believe he could not get the financing for that. So then he sold the land to Who's Got It Today. And I may be wrong, but I was told he's already paid her for the Romans, but he has to move it. And he has not moved it because he doesn't have, I'm assuming he doesn't have the financing to do all that he needs to do. So I'm hoping that if it does expire next month, we don't extend it or renew it unless it comes back before council and we have a discussion on it.
Okay. Anything else at this point? Anything else in the CIP? Bill, do you have anything else you want to? Anybody else? That's it for the CIP?
No, this
Okay.
was just to cover existing projects.
Okay.
But I do know that some of these will be carried over to the future, so we won't need to talk about them multiple times. So.
Okay, so go on.
So when you look forward in time, this was projects that have money in the budget right now. If you look forward to the next 5 years, these are some of the same assumptions that we put in here every single year. So fully funded, we talked about the capacity for GO bonds. We maintain 5 to 10 year forecasts, not just for the general fund, for enterprise funds, but for all of our capital funds. And then, as we talked about in our previous work session, any one-time unallocated dollars in fiscal year 24 go towards fund balance, and that goes is specifically utilized for future year 5-year CIP. There was a document distributed to council as one of those paper handouts that showed all the projects that required debt issuances over the 5 years in the CIP. We have some of those listed on here. We've talked about several of them already. One that might be worth bringing up is the Goodyear Rec Campus Phase 2. That's a strategic plan action item. So we have some debt that's callable right about the same time that we need to get under construction for Phase 2 of the rec campus. We plan on calling that debt and basically replacing those debt service streams with the new debt service streams for the rec campus Phase 2. That's how we were able to get it to pencil and get it to work in the 5-year forecast.
What year is that, you said?
Right around fiscal year 27.
Okay, so hope interest rates are lower by that time.
And by the time we actually do construction and get everything, we're looking in the fiscal year 2030, 2031 timeframe, tentatively as of right now.
Okay, thank you.
So the 5-year CIP we mentioned, it went down from about 270 projects to about 80. Well, that equates to about $577 million. We've talked about some of the bigger projects. We'll talk about some of the other big projects as well. But this is just a visual way to see it. You'll notice fiscal year 25 actually isn't a very high additional dollar amount that we're adding in, and that was purposefully done. We've talked about all these projects that we haven't worked through yet. So it would just add to that backlog if we were to budget a lot of additional dollars in fiscal year 25. So you can see, as opposed to the typical stair step down, which we see with the current budget year being the highest one, fiscal year 25 is actually pretty light. And if you look at that, this is the same thing just looked at graphically, and we show it this way just because we've all talked about transportation projects. You can specifically see on here, there's over $232 million, almost $233 million of our $577 million that is related specifically to transportation. If you add in projects that are only traffic signal specific or add in projects that are ITS specific, they're all kind of transportation related, helping people get from one place to another. 43% of our entire 5-year CIP is dedicated to transportation type projects. So we hear what you're saying, and the money in the budget is budgeted to help that initiative along.
Just a pause right here, if you would. We had talked, Wynette, about when we're out in the public, having a bullet point type of thing on the CIP, transportation, at least I would like transportation projects that we're doing, the money we're going to spend this fiscal year, and then just a column that goes total out the X amount of years, so that when we're out in the public and say, how are we going to deal with the transportation, whether it's lights or anything, this is what we have slated to spend, so I can talk intelligent to them when I'm out there in the public. Go ahead, Bill.
So you mentioned a couple times we had a $600 million capital budget, a capital improvement budget, and now it's half of that or whatever. So $300 million of it, did it go back into, because we obviously didn't see any of the departmental budgets, did all of that money go back in there?
So it was about $360 million was our approved CIP this year. It's now just about 300. So 50 to 60 million of that got reduced. And we are classifying that. It didn't disappear. Those projects are still being done. But we would, if you were to see these as new requests, they would show up as supplementals, not as CIP requests in the future. So it's one-time dollars. And we have different limitations on supplemental requests, meaning CIP dollars, once they're budgeted, those projects tend to continue to carry, so they don't have to be re-requested each year. Supplementals, you have a year to carry those over, so basically 2 years. And if that project's not complete, then they have to re-request it. So that'll allow, give some prioritization from a department standpoint on a lot of the projects that are under their control versus the bigger ones that our CIP team have to manage, to allow us to work through both those. The only difference you will see is how they're presented during the budget process.
So all of the, I'm going to say all, and I mean that very generically, all of the vehicles, let's say, that used to be in the CIP that are no longer there, where do we just have a vehicle replacement fund and they're put there? Did we add a line item to PD for 30 squad car? I mean, how did we?
So we do have a asset replacement program for existing vehicles.
Right.
But for new vehicles, correct. So for the new vehicles, those are not in our 5-year CIP. So we know that those are going to be coming, and we have, just like we kind of have operating costs set aside and know that when these projects complete, we'll have ongoing dollars. We have one-time dollars that we will be able to allocate to that. And we know that there will not be a shortcoming of one-time dollars based on how our budget is structured, like we talked about from our conservative philosophy. So those exist in future years, and they will be handled as a request in the year that they need to be purchased.
So I know you know where they are. Tell me where I know where they are.
Yes, that's what he's asking.
Where do I see the $1.5 million ladder truck replace? Where do I see that in that pool of the ladder truck and the garbage truck and the bucket truck that Public Works and the street sweeper? Where do I see that in here?
So all the existing ones are in the asset management funds.
Okay, so that's where we'll see that, is asset management.
And then I think anything new, I think you were also saying
No,
new
I got-
ones. Okay.
I
you got
heard that I got.
Okay.
A new one comes, like a new garbage truck like we've got in here, comes up as a supplemental, and it shows up this way. I got. And then So the ballpark is the last question that I have. So our agreement with the teams expires in 3 years? Somebody? 3 years, I think? Are we 3 years on expiration of the agreement with at least the first team? And then, I'll keep talking while you're walking. We all know that because we've all lived here long enough, that when that agreement expires, there's going to be a request for major renovation in that facility. So when does it expire? How are we prepared for a $50 million request to upgrade the facility?
So the Guardians use agreement will expire immediately following spring training of 2028, and the Reds will expire following spring training of 2029. And we have already started those discussions with both of the teams to kind of create that baseline of what's going to be necessary in the future.
Okay, so
as it stands, to answer your question, as it stands today, they are not in our 5-year. We are at the early stages of the negotiation, so we don't have any idea what that amount is going to be. So we could throw in a placeholder, but we typically, as a best practice, until we have some idea of what that's going to cost, we're not throwing it in there yet.
There is the ask out there.
Yeah, that's
We have not agreed to the ask and still.
No, I understand.
Long
I mean,
ways off.
until we say absolutely, but, so here's the rest of my concern with that is we sit here as a council and we say performing arts and conference center and buy this and do that and fire station this and police say, and we have let's just say generically, $40 million hanging out there on an ask. Maybe it's 25, but let's just plan the worst case scenario, and it's $40 million, and none of us are thinking about that as we say yes to this and yes to that and more street projects and.
Speak for yourself, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know you and I are because we've been talking about this for 15 years, but I'm not suggesting that we need to pull $50 million somewhere and lock it in a fund for future ballpark improvements. However, if we're 3 years away from this agreement coming forward, I think we need to start looking at this. And I look at these guys, and I know that you're the money managers and you're going to figure that out. But then I need to look to the rest of us and say, we need to be thinking about this when we say, this is a great idea, we should do it. I don't know that, there's not an ask in that, there's not a question in that, but holy smokes, we have got to be thinking, what does this future look like? Because that is not the only ask that's going to come our way.
And the ballpark won't be paid for in 3 years either.
Correct.
So you've still got that big burden hanging
Well,
on
and
our necks.
you saw on Friday, it's $12 million a year we're paying on that for the next few
I
years,
think
so.
Wynette's going to bring something before us to show what you're getting to.
And I think Councilmember Stipp, you and Councilmember Campbell brought this up, like, we need to get a big whiteboard, we need to list all of what the council wishes are, what we've got in the CIP, what do we have, coming up contractually, and so we have been working to put that together with the year and the amounts and everything. I will be asking for an executive session to talk about one of those projects that are coming forward, and we will have that list ready at that time. And then we want to bring it back this fall for the retreat, so that when we are looking at the strategic plan and adding that extra year as we, work on the current year, we know what's out there, and that will help us prepare for the next year's budget. It's a hefty list, so you will get to see that here pretty soon.
Here's my concern, and wasn't here when they cut the deal, but you cut a deal in 20 years and with a 5-year extension. And when they do the negotiations in 20 years, we're still paying $12 million out of the general fund for the following 5 years after that. My only concern is whatever we do, I personally don't want to see any more debt or general fund money added to that $12 million. to me personally, if we're gonna do anything, it's gotta be one time from somewhere. Because we're already 12 million in the hole, the state's taking, who knows, 5 million now, could be up 10 or 15 million down later. I'm not sure we can take on any more debt out of the general fund to pay for that. So I'm hoping, and I don't know what those asks are gonna be, but if we can't cover them with one-time money, I think that we got some issues. So that's just from my perspective, because the 12 million will continue 5 years after the deal is cut. And let Vicki and then.
Bruce, I just want an idea. I don't know if this is Bruce or Gwinnett. Do we have any idea when we're going to start talking about this? When we're going to, you know?
We are talking internally, but haven't
We got
gotten
an ask,
anything.
but we're not
yeah.
negotiating at this point, so when do we have an idea on that?
I think they'd like it sooner than later. Do you have a better idea? Last time we met, we weren't even close.
As of right now, we've kind of engaged in casual conversation with both of our teams. We're expecting that there's going to be a formal request probably mid to late summer.
Okay.
Probably June, July-ish, from one of the teams may start to engage in those conversations and push them forward quicker.
So we'll kind of get an idea where we're going then?
Yeah.
Correct.
Because right now, we're just sitting here going, we have no idea.
We
Yeah.
have no
So
idea.
we have to have an
Yeah.
idea if we're going forward
Yeah.
for this.
I won't bring
Sooner or
anything
later.
before you until we have a better idea what that is.
But, yeah, but it's coming up. So
Oh,
that's,
yes.
Like to Joe, we need to know.
That's what's going to be in this list.
Right, okay.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Does the Arizona Sports and Tourism Authority help with the renovations like they did with Surprise? I mean, does it just get added on to our total? Is that an ask, or is that not even possible because they haven't paid off our first one yet?
Correct. So as to currently, we'll be sunsetting in 2031. So currently, we are not on the list for renovation funding at this time.
So that has to go through the legislature to do that?
Correct. That would have to be extended.
Okay.
Good luck on that.
Yeah, that's a no. The other question was, when they took the money away, we did that fund to put some money aside. Well, I'm not gonna call it a sinking fund, because that doesn't sound good, but a rainy day fund for the ballpark to pay for it. I mean, you had it all figured out or something?
That's when we had the money, yeah.
Well, if it's one-time money, is that something we can maybe look at for one-time money to kind of put a little aside, since we want
Well,
to?
the one time doesn't bother me, it's adding more debt to the 12 million we already have.
That's what I mean.
That's what bothers
If we
me.
put the one-time away for the next couple years a little bit, would that be?
That's still not gonna cover you. You gotta scrape off the top some ongoing money to set it. That's what we did with the sinking fund. We took away ongoing money and we made it one-time money, so that by the time that came up, we had $5 million of ongoing that was used for one time that we could use to add to the
Add it in
principal,
there.
yeah. And that's the thing, right now, we're kind of short on the ongoing as a result of some state legislation and whatever. So as a result, to squeeze off another ongoing, which already we're using, what, 4 million plus of one-time money for ongoing, to plug it this year, we're gonna have to figure that out next year. We'd have to go ahead and pull more ongoing money away to set up that sinking fund, or rainy day fund, or whatever you wanna call it. That's where the challenges are gonna be. Now, if the state wouldn't have messed with us, we might be in a little better shape, but unfortunately, reality is reality. And that 5 million that they got, plus maybe 10 in the next few years or whatever, is gonna impact us. There's no way around that, it's just going to, so, as we grow. But we're gonna be hearing something from them soon, I suspect, right? Yeah. Thank you. We may have to have a bake sale. Cookies, yes. Any other questions? Are you at the end, or are you still going?
We have a couple more slides on projects. They're all listed in the budget books, but I want to make sure that council has adequate opportunity to ask if they have any questions on them.
Well, let me ask the council, are there anything in the budget book? I know, Bill, I think you got yours, right? Does anybody else have anything that you want to ask specifically on a project? Because it's going to take about 20 minutes when we close this out to get set up for the next meeting, because they got to pick up all this stuff and move it over. Is there anything you want to ask?
I have one question that wasn't in the budget. What about the traffic light at Perryville and Indian School? I didn't see it in the budget anywhere.
Traffic light at Perryville and Indian School.
But of course, there's lots of traffic lights in that. I couldn't find it. The 26? Oh,
For that specific, council member, for that specific traffic signal, we incorporated in the Indian School project to do that signal, the signal at Citrus and Indian School, and the entire half street along the southern half street along that mile between Citrus and Perryville. So it's included in that budget now.
In 26? 2030? We can't wait that long for that intersection. I'll be dead by 2030.
20,
No, you're the ever-ready
20
battery.
26.
Holy cow, that is a terrible, terrible, terrible intersection. And on Saturday, I don't
Right.
drive it except on Saturday, it takes 10 to 15 minutes just to get through there.
Previously, it was delayed because of some development construction and dry utility relocation. So what we decided to do was incorporate it in the project with Indian School to control our own destiny there. So we'll build that with the Indian School project.
Is that at the Microsoft corner?
This is west of there. It's from that Microsoft corner all the way to the edge of the city on Perryville along Indian School.
Yeah, but the traffic light is right at the corner of Perryville and Indian School.
That's one of the traffic signals included, and then the other one is the one I believe
At
you originally
Citrus.
mentioned. Yes, Citrus, and also at Perryville and Indian School.
And you're saying that that's not going to be done till 2030?
Not 2030, 2028?
So it will probably come online sometime before then, the entirety of the completion, the project that Steve's talking about that's combined. So the roadway construction with the traffic signals, they will come on sometime between 28 and 2030 in sequential order. That's how they're
But still-
budgeted right now, yes.
4 to 6 years away. Okay.
Yes, Bill.
Okay, so in the 5-year CIP project of note with schedule changes, the traffic signal Camelback and Perryville, 50% participation, moved from FY '23 to FY '26. So is it FY '30 or is it FY '26? I mean, I don't want to be a stickler for detail, but,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's a big difference.
and especially on Indian School Road?
Yeah. Everybody is using Indian School now to go to Fry's and to all of the development that is at Jackrabbit in Indian School. It's huge.
And I can tell you, our plan is, it's one entire project, but as Ryan mentioned, if we can bring the signals on ahead of time, we will.
Well, but this says 26 and that says 30, so do we not know what we're
Yeah,
doing?
but the lights will be working.
Can we get clarification
We can get some,
on this
we
and
can
get
follow
back
up
to
with some
them?
more detail.
Because this is confusing. Yeah.
Would you please, for clarification?
Yeah.
Make sure we get that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Everybody good? You got that look, Bill? You all right?
I'm good-ish.
You're good-ish? Okay. All right, is everybody okay? So we can close this one out and need about 20 minutes? About 20 minutes to move on over to the council? Everybody all right?
Looking like this.